very cosy edition of the show.
This is it's semi-finals. Everyone's getting a bit excited. And how'd you guys go this week?
Well, for me, I'm not lowest this week.
Oh,
the first time I think
look
it'll
at
be
that.
about a month.
Looking at you, Joyce.
Yeah.
Well, it was the bullshit loophole.
Oh,
For the only
okay.
reason, I have Gaz captain, and he turned it an absolute shocker on the weekend. I think I probably only lost because of the last 5 minutes. He had 2 frees against, and I think that could have really pushed it over the edge.
Excuses. You just don't know how to utilise the loophole.
No, I don't use a
That's
broken.
interesting. Yeah.
I don't use a broken mechanic of the game.
You got to be in it to win it, and if there's a loophole, I will exploit it every day of the week. And
You're just
for
that type
us-
of person.
Yes.
yeah, I know.
You
And-
got
Selwood.
22.
Yes, the wood seller. He saved us. He saved us. He's
Isn't he a gun?
a gun. He's doing well. He's in top form at the moment.
He's averaging 136 for his past 5 games at the moment, so
Yep.
he's absolutely on fire.
We could have chosen anyone though. We had the
Exactly.
genius to choose him as the vice captain and stick with him.
We did, and that's what happens. Winners are grinners, and you can just please yourself. So you and I now are tied on 3. So it's
Well, at least we're
game
not
on.
as bad as him.
Well, look, that's true.
At least I obtained a
There's
scalp.
got to be a loser here.
Got to scalp my way out though. That's the main thing.
What
My
was
way out to
everyone's
England.
scores anyway? How did you go?
22-20, so not too bad.
222
22-38.
and 22.86. So I am on top this week.
For a change.
Feeling pretty
Yeah.
happy about that one. Did you guys got the week off?
Yes.
Yes, made the prelim.
Fantastic. Yep, me too. Through the prelims.
And
So
I did it all with a man down as well, which is
Oh, really?
adds salt to the other wound there.
Well, bringing Pavic was basically having a man down.
well, we did. You and I took the punt, and we decided to bring in Matthew Pavlich, and he scored 160 against GWS last year, and he scored about 100 less than that this year with about 60 odd.
Yeah.
But that was still enough to get me over the line by a couple of points.
Must admit, if I had any trades left, I probably would have done the same as well. So.
Yep.
You are just very happy though. Anyway, we did it last week with the defenders. This week it's the midfielders, the SCP All Australian midfield for the year.
Yep.
And, there was actually a contest on the Facebook a few hours
There
ago.
was. It took almost 3 hours for our fans to get this one right. Congratulations, Justin Lewis, on actually winning that one. We have to give out a couple of hints before it actually reared its head. So we're going to go through the team. But before we do, there's a new criteria this week specific for our midfielders. So players must have averaged a minimum of 15 games of 80 plus, a minimum of 10 games scoring 100 plus, and a minimum of 6 games over 125.
Yeah.
And they must have played also a minimum of 16 games. So when you think about it, we're looking now at score power, so those premiums who really know how to score big in the mids, but also consistently scoring over 100, or if they're not scoring 100, they're constantly getting over 80. But as a midfielder, as a rule of thumb, you want to have the averaging well over 100 anyway.
Yeah, and durable as well. And kick us off, Dan, with the wood seller.
Yes, the wood seller. He's I think he's probably the most in-form midfielder,
He is.
alongside Griffin. Outlets, of course, he's faltered now and again. But Selwood, he scored 17 games where he scored over 80, 13 over 100. Gets better though.
Yeah.
10 over 125, and he's averaging 116. And from 19 games in 2013, he's done that, and he's owned by 30.4% of the team. So a lot of people are cottoned on.
So it's a third of the competition are onto
Yes.
Selwood. He probably would have jumped on in the second half of the year as well
Yeah.
when he started really hitting those big scores.
And another player as well who's he's had a late run of form, I think, and coming to his own is Ryan Griffin. He's scored a similar sort of numbers to Selwood. He's done 15 games where he scored 80 plus, 14 over 100, 10 over 125 for an average of 121.
That's crazy.
So that's massive. And all from 17 games, and he's owned by 14.72% of the players in the comp.
That's nuts. And he did have a couple of early scores that were below 80. So had he had not had those scores, he would have been the number 1 midfielder of the SCP All Australian midfielders. So that's 1 and 2. And coming in at number 3 is Collingwood's own Dane Swan. 17 games of 80 plus this year. Just the reasonable 13 games of 100 plus, so that's a little bit down on form for him. But this is what's most exciting about him, is that in the 13 games that he has scored over 100, He's 9 of those times he's gone boom and gone over 125. So those are massive numbers. Average of 118, again a little bit down there. From 19 games this year, and he's still owned by almost half of the competition. So. Still very well backed player.
He's a big favourite of everyone, I think, that plays SuperCoach. And I started with him over Pendlebury.
I did as well.
And I was a bit disappointed. I should have stuck with Pendlebury because I did the opposite last year. So
I was supposed to be starting with two, but look, I went Swan to begin with. But and next up is everybody's favourite. When you talk about favourite SuperCoach players, this guy is number one, Gary Ablett.
Not based on last week.
Last week aside, now 16 games of 80 plus this year, 16 games of over 100, a huge 9 games of over 125, average over 26. That's probably dipped down a bit as of late. He's been a little bit out of form. He has played 19 games this year, so 18 games, and he's still owned by 66% of the competition. So we're getting into almost 2/3 there.
Yep. And the man you were talking about that you didn't have at the start of the year that I did, Scott Pendlebury.
There we go.
17 games of 80 plus, so that's equal highest of anyone in the AA team. 17 games of 100 plus, which is ridiculous.
Very good.
Only 8 games of 125 plus for an average of 126 over 19 games, but it tends to be, Pendles generally gets like around the 120 mark, so it doesn't get quite, the 125s, but have an average of 126, you need to be a bloody good player.
Exactly.
And he's owned by just under half the competition, about 48% or so, so very good by
Number one scoring player this year, he's still number one.
And one that's really making his move for that position is Kieran Jack. 15 games of 80 plus, 13 games of 100 plus, 8 games of 125 plus for an average of 112 over 19 games. Only 10% of the competition, but
pretty unique,
in the past 2 months he's been an absolute dynamo with the scoring, so very good.
And look, the next player to take up the 7th position on our field here is another Collingwood player. I don't think anyone else saw this coming. Still side bottom. Now, people are probably going, what the hell? Because when we ran this competition today, not one person mentioned still side bottom in over 600 or 700 entries. So that just goes to show how he's flown under the radar there. Now, here are his numbers. He's had 15 games of 80 plus this year, including 10 times he's gone over 100. And 7 times he has scored over 125. So that's only one less than the likes of Jack and Pendlebury. So he's quite up there. Really, I can't believe a lot of people, I haven't myself really given him too much because a lot of people seem to favour, obviously, Pendlebury and Swan. But, just to give you a bit of an idea of how unique he is, only 3.25% of teams actually have him. So that's ridiculous. But, he's well-deserved. He fits the criteria to a T, and he's pushed out some very good players in doing so.
Yeah, I definitely have him if he was dual position like he was last year.
Yeah, it's a big, he and Beams... Deledio on for me as well. If they had still had DPP, it would have been locks.
Yeah, and the last one on the ground is another smoky that a few people cottoned on to towards the end after you gave away a few hints. Lee Montagna, 16 games of 80 plus, 13 of 100 plus, 7 125 plus for an average of 111 over 18 games. So he's only missed the one game.
Yep.
And he's only owned by 1.5% of teams.
That's ridiculous. And considering there's over 300,000 people involved in SuperCoach, that's just nuts. He's been very good of late, not so good on the weekend. A bit of a letdown with 75.
Yeah, I think later we're going to actually discuss a bit why he hasn't, been in so many teams, because he's a prolific scorer.
Yeah.
He was a lock in my team 2 years ago. So
yeah, he was. He was quite well backed a while ago.
And one player who I think is quite unlucky to find himself on the bench, but of course he's only played the 16 games. I think missing those games might have pushed him out behind the likes of Sidebottom and Montagna there. Yeah. That's Joe Watson. He's scored 11 80 plus games, 11 100 plus games. He had a massive run of form there up until he got he got injured, didn't he?
Broken collarbone.
Collarbone, seen him out for I think 2-3 weeks, which is a bit surprising that he came back so quickly. He scored 825 plus games for an average of 112 from 16. And he's owned still by 11.59%. So he's still there. I think a lot of people might have hung on to him, or even brought him back in when he dropped in price. And
he's bounced back beautifully from injury. He's come back in and scored back-to-back hundreds. And in saying that as well, that that 11% is probably not really truly reflective of how well he was back during the year.
Yeah. And another one that you've had since the start.
Yeah, Paddy Dangerfield. God, looking back on this season, it's been an interesting relationship between you and I, Patrick. 15 games of 80 plus, 11 games of 100 plus, and just the 6 games of 125 plus. So he went on a bit of a roller coaster this year, Paddy. Those games where he scored in the 60s, 70s didn't help him whatsoever. Really brought his average down, which obviously now is at 113, and he's still owned by 14.73% of the competition. So, it's not really, again, just like Joe, he did get injured, so not really reflective of how well he was back during the year, especially in pre-season.
Yeah, and we had Brett Goods as the best first-year player last year.
He did.
This year for the last week. For midfielders, it's Jaeger O'Meara. Something I'm really shocked at. Still owned by 40% of the competition.
And what I had looked today is that the current overall leader of the SuperCoach season at the moment still has him on field.
Wow, he's scoring so well.
Yeah.
He is.
13 scores of 80 plus and 7 scores of 100 plus, 3 scores of 110 plus. Modify the bracket a little bit for you, Jaeger.
Yeah.
And that's from 19 games, so he's been so consistent. Great scoring
exactly,
over 80. So
when we talk about a first year player, I mean, at least with Brett Goods last week, he's 28, 29.
This
guy comes out and he scores, constant 90s on a weekly basis. It's just absolutely crazy.
And breakout player of this year, he's come on so well, I think, considering that he had the off-field dramas in the pre-season. His time with Pretoria, he's scored 13 80-plus games, 10 100-plus games, 6 games where he scored 125-plus, and he's averaging 105 from 19 games. I think, you can see there that he's averaging in the lower half, sort of from 80 to 100, but he has scored those high games as well. So
he's the number 1 clearance player in the competition.
Yes, it was
by light years. So
kind of surprising. He's a good player and good future there for the Dogs.
Definitely, they found one there in him.
And lots of people are saying, well, what about my player, the one that I've got in my team? Well, they were unlikely to miss.
There were a couple that were very unlucky. I mean, kick us off. Here we go.
Well, popular picks: Nat 5 for one.
Yeah.
15 games with 80 plus, 1100, 6 125, averaging 107 over 17 games. So pretty consistent, but just not quite good enough to get on the field.
And the only reason he actually misses, he actually ticks off all the criteria. The only reason he misses out is because of that average of 107. So he did have those games where he scored quite low. That's brought that average down.
Yep.
He misses out purely on average, but otherwise ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, and there's 3 more that they've got quite good averages, but just on the massive scoring power. They don't stack up against the big ones.
We've got Sammy Mitchell, he's a favourite of mine. He's averaging 105 for the year, which is a little bit down upon last year. He had 15 games where he scored over 80, 10 over 100, 5 over 125, and that's all from 18 games.
Yeah. And one for me, Mickey Barlow. Good story, great to see him back playing football, and he's a big reason why Fremantle are doing so well this year. But again, it's just with Mickey B, we see too many scores that are early 100s, and he just doesn't cut it as a big premium midfielder for mine. He has had 17 games over 80, but it's here where it sort of starts to, you get a bit worried, is it's 14 games of 100 plus, which is good. What this doesn't reflect is how many games he's actually scored between 101 and 111, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, he's only had 3 games where he's been able to break that 125 barrier.
Yeah.
He's still owned by quite a large percent of the competition, but I mean, he's been doing very well of late, but just doesn't pump out the numbers to really warrant a spot in that team.
Yeah, and last but not least, my man, Trent Cotchin.
Hey.
He's back, in my opinion. He's in fantastic form these past month.
He's going to be captain of the first year, and then he's going to take him to finals. How pissed would Christian be?
I'm sure he's ecstatic just to play finals.
Just to play finals.
And really the only thing holding him back was 4 games of 125 plus, but so consistent, averaging 110, so you can't really expect much more. But moving on from that to, for starters, just look at the All-Australian team and look at your team. And if you see, big disparities between your team and that team, just think, well, maybe I should get in ex-player, Joel Selwood.
It's a very, very, very good way to sort of draw where you need to make some improvements in your team if you're looking at least sideways or even upgrade this week. So, and now we move into our next segment here, and we're going to take more of a really stern look now at loophole options and captain choices, because we saw last week people like yourself that have been gunning it all year, one poor captain choice during the finals has cost a lot of people first week wins, and some that are in elimination finals have barreled out first week, and that's just simply just heartbreaking. So for those of you that have either got the week off or that are going to feature this week, we're going to take a proper look now at who you should really be backing between Friday, Saturday and Sunday.
Now, if I were to use this cheap tactic,
that everyone uses,
the best option would be some of the players on Friday night.
I don't like your moral compass.
Well, too bad.
It bores me.
Scott Pendlebury against Hawthorn at the MCG. Great player to start with. He features in the All-Australian SCP team. He scored 150 points and 124 against the Hawks in round 3. And in 2012, he had crazy scores, 167 and 127. So, great option.
Very good option to use the VC, I think.
And Collingwood will really be pushing for a top 4 spot, actually, given that if Sydney lose 2 quite difficult games against Geelong and Hawthorn at the end of the year, they could drop out. So.
Yeah, they're going to break the hoodoo against Hawthorn first, which would be no easy task, but we will await.
Yeah, and moving on to Saturday, Tommy Rockcliffe against GWS at the Gabba.
He's a very good VC option.
It's a very good option.
I mean, given the form he's in to play as well.
Yeah, and he's projected in SuperCoach Gold to score 136. He had 146 against them last year, and he's averaging 136 against them in the last 5 games. In the last 5 games of this year, sorry.
Wow, so he's really put the foot to the throat of everyone else he's playing against.
Especially at the Gabba as well. 166 and 147 as his last 2 games.
Well, that's his playground there, the Gabba. He absolutely loves that place.
Yeah.
And another one to use Dean Cox to consider against Geelong. Now you may think that's tough opposition, but he comes up against undermanned rucks for Geelong.
Yeah.
Vardy, his past few opponents now, Lobe, he scored 154 points against him. And then the week before, Goldstein, he had 42 hitouts against him as well. So he's been going in form. I think ever since Simpson was injured for Geelong, they've kind of been depleted in their rucks. So I think Cox, he will dominate Vardy, and he even had a huge 190 points against the Cats last year.
I remember that. I
And
remember that thoroughly.
And that was over in Victoria as well, so this one's at Patterson, so big difference.
Yeah, exactly right.
He's a big smoky as well, this one, I think.
Yeah, he is. He's one to consider from left field. Another one is Joel Selwood. Comes up against West Coast, of course. He's projected to be the second highest scorer this week, which is 135.
Just behind your boy Rocky.
Yes. And has averaged 138 in his last 3 games this year, so he's in awesome form. He's had a very nice 160 against Port last week, but he comes up against his brother this week. Yes, the other Selwood.
A bit of brotherly love, a bit of punching.
Yes. Might get
A couple of
recorded for it.
kidney punches.
Yes, and he's had just 99 scored on him. This is the Selwood from West Coast, and he's found it very tough, I think, his opponent. So he's one to consider, but if he's going to be tagged, then maybe avoid him.
Well, the next one we've got as well on Saturday afternoon, he let us down last week. It's Gary Ablett. Now, he travels over to Amy Stadium against Port Adelaide, but there's a nice little bit of history here that I think we need to hone in on. Now, back in 2011, Gary Ablett had a really poor couple of weeks. He scored actually 95 and 75, so pretty low on his lofty standards. He then travelled to Amy Stadium and punched out a score of 198. Now, I'm really hoping that history repeats itself, because that would be a great way to bounce back and make up for last week. So, in saying that as well, he did have 131 on the power early this year, and that was the tag from Cassisi and Corns, the combo there. And he also had 111 on them in 2012. But for me at the moment, I'm going to say it, I'm actually going to stay away from him until he shows me some decent numbers, because I'd probably say the last month, he's been very here and there. I'm not really, you can't take that sort of form for captaincy material in the finals.
I think he actually needs to perform, because everyone was touting him as, the the Brownlow medalist for this year, and it's not so clear cut now with a few.
Selwood's there, Pendlebury's there,
Yep,
Swan is there, Jack is there, Hanbury's still there.
So he needs.
It's getting
he needs
up
to
now.
go.
Yeah, he does. He needs to stamp his authority there. And and to finish things off on Sunday now, another good smoky, and if you've got him still in your team, this will be a good one to look forward to. Could win you the game on Sunday. Nat Fife, Nat Fife the knife, yeah. Look, he loves to play Melbourne. He had 32 touches on them early this year and had 128 SuperCoach points. And he had also had 151 on Melbourne last year, so he's averaging 125 in his past 3 games at the moment. And in that round 9 game, I mean, the Dockers had a lot of 100+ scorers, and I think 8 or 9 from memory. The D's just tend to give up a lot of points when we talk about Supercoach scoring. So for anyone if you've got these players, Fremantle players in your side that are coming up against Melbourne this week, I'd be a little worried because Rossi might rest a few more.
Yeah.
And B, if they do play, you can probably expect a really solid score.
Yeah, because that's what you've got to toss up. Is Ross Lyon really going to try and smash these teams? Because they're going for a top 2 spot, the Dockers.
Yep.
But you've also got, this is over at the MCG, so I think they've got their last 2 rounds at home.
They do, yes.
So they're much more likely to play in those 2 weeks leading up to get some form to finals and have a rest now.
Well, they've got top 4 now locked up.
Yep.
They can't move from top 4 unless, of course, something drastic happens, but that won't happen.
Yep.
But it wouldn't surprise to see them. I mean, you'd probably expect Ibbotson and Stephen Hill back this week.
Yeah.
Maybe one, maybe rested.
Possibly.
Yep.
Now, moving on to something a bit different. We normally do Tweet of the Week, but
We
this
do.
week we've got, we actually took some questions from you, from Facebook.
We did. We decided to throw it out there because, I mean, luckily this week we haven't got any major injuries to be concerned about we need to discuss. There isn't really much training to happen because everyone's teams are basically complete. If they're not, they're only doing sideways trades. So we thought we'd actually give it to you guys out there to ask us the questions you want to know so we can answer them directly for you on tonight's show. So we're going to kick them off, and we picked the best 18 from Facebook, and we'll kick things off with Sam Casey. He asked, who has been the best value for money player that wasn't a starting rookie?
He's got a starter step, that's for sure.
He's got a starter step, and for me, look, it's Josh Kennedy from the Eagles all the way. He started at a pretty modest 300.
I thought it was 200 something.
Was it?
Yeah, mid-200s.
Mid-200, well, there you go. Now, he was dirt cheap, and I'm a bit reluctant jumping on him to start off with because key forwards, they're always a bit... But he has just been fantastic. I mean, he's been in my side the whole year and I haven't even thought about upgrading him.
Yeah.
So,
when I actually got him, I was I wanted to keep him as a playing cash cow and then get rid of him when he peaked in price.
I did too, yeah.
He just never presented a moment to really trade him.
No, he coughs up some big scores as well. So, look, he's been fantastic.
Yep. My question from Tristan Young, asking why has no one picked up Montagna? He's had him for ages, he's a gun, and like we said, he's only owned by 1.5% of the competition. My opinion, he's getting a bit old. Goddard left, and so nobody expected St Kilda to do that great, except for maybe a few one-eyed Saint supporters. So
and the Ox. Yeah.
And maybe they expected, him to get a bit more attention. Just have to do more of an inside role that he's not suited to, or something like that. But you saw he made the SCPAA team.
He's back to a form about a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So that's why, if you don't have him, why not?
Why not?
And I've got one here from Brent Fernandez, can't bloody read. Who to trade for Nick Nat because I'm stuck. Now, it was one that I suggested before we started filming the show was Sandy.
Yeah.
He's quite unique. He's got an easy run home. I think Freo's got the easiest run home out of the lot. So he's one I'd look at. I think he's bottomed out in price.
Yep.
Yeah,
so if you're struggling for cash, he's one to go for. Of course, as I've been saying all year, ever since I've got him really, Minson, he's one to go for as well.
Yeah.
The Milkman and Goldstein as well, if you've got enough cash.
Yeah, I bought in Goldstein and he's been serviceable so far.
Yeah, otherwise, if you're struggling, look at Sandy for sure. And there's another one here from Max Wills. He says, we asked, if you could start again this year, who would be in your team? Now, I said before, wish I had Pendles over Swan. Swan's been so up and down.
Yeah, that's probably one for me.
Selwood for me. I don't have Selwood in my team.
So, what about Griffin?
Yeah, before you hit that vein of form, definitely.
Yeah. I actually, one person I really regretted not bringing in at the start of the year was Joe Watson. I was reeling over that for quite a while, and I actually got him in a lot. I got him in very quickly, but it cost me 2 tries to do it because I was desperate to get him in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And another one as well from Jack Biddles. He asked, what's the go with Matthew Cruiser?
What is the go?
What is the go? I think he's a test this week, although he's going to be facing a bigger test, I think, because Warnock, he played last week and he actually performed quite well. I think he beat Vincent comprehensively and scored 48 hitouts. So, he might not slot back in. He maybe...
might give me an extra week.
The extra week, maybe, I mean, but then
that's
again...
That's fine by me. I mean, you play Richmond. So.
Then again, we need to win the last 3 games in order to make the finals. So I think Carlton may put him back in if he's right.
I have one from Glenn Breton. He asks, what's the best unique option for each position purely on scoring for the next 3 weeks? Good question, actually. Now, looking at from the forward line, again, we're taking a bit of Fremantle for here. Matthew Pavlich, he had 67 on the weekend, but I brought him into my team purely because I know what he's going to be capable of for the next couple of weeks. Now, I've got every intention to make the grand final, and this guy's going to be hitting his peak thereabouts because the last 2 games Freo play are at Patterson. So, having the forward line is about 457, pretty cheap at the moment. In the midfield, again, he's in our All-Australian team, still side bottom. Really can't go past him at the moment. He's playing a new position, sort of between half back and onto a wing. He's getting a lot of the footballing. In fact, he's having more. Last year when he had that run of 30-odd possessions in a row, he's gone back to playing that same position now, and that's reflecting in his scoring. So the next one as well, Rux, as you mentioned, Sandilands. Fremantle will want to get as much form into him as they possibly can because he is a weapon come September.
Not the weapon, but a weapon.
Not the weapon, but a weapon. And in defence, another one from left field, but one that's very good. It is Brandon Ellis.
Didn't listen.
We didn't listen. Brandon Ellis, you've got to get him in if you're even thinking about it. Great run home for the Tigers, and they're really just starting now to gather some serious momentum heading into the finals.
Yep. Dean Gehring asks, who's the best point of difference player to bring in this week? Out of those, I'd probably say Ellis. He's hitting a really good vein of form. I don't trust Sandlands. He's so fragile. Yeah, he's like paper mache. Pav didn't perform well for me. Side bottom's alright, but gotta go with Ellis.
Yep. Now, Adam Licker, he says, with Duffield playing easy beats the next few weeks, is it worth keeping him and trading Staker instead? It's funny because Staker had a couple of stinkers in a row, then punched out 79 on the weekend and made me look pretty stupid. Thanks, Staker. But look, I think keep the faith with Duffield. Again, he's been one that's had sort of subpar form throughout the year, and Fremantle will run these players into form, and keeping Duffield now much more upside in him than Staker.
Yep. Dustin Edmonds asking 5 must-have players for SuperCoach in 2014. Now,
good question.
Very good question. I think Bartel is going to change from a forward mid to a defender mid.
Yeah, that's the word we've been given. So there's your first piece of info for 2014.
Yep. Ellis again. I just love the kid. You normally have second-year Blues, but Ellis has played really well this year. It's surprising he's only a second-year player, and he's going to move into that third year, which is generally, the breakout year. Other options.
Well, with Ellis, do you reckon he will stay as a defender, or will he be a dual position, or
defender mid maybe?
Because he's now moved into the mids for Richmond, I think. So might be a.
I reckon there's one that I'd be really very excited to jump on would be Chad Wingard if he can get. And look, he should now with the amount of goals he's kicked this year. He should now become a dual position player between mid and forward, which would be a real bonus.
Yeah, and a rookie. First year player that's going to come in, Luke McDonald from North Melbourne. He's going to be an absolute star in his first year, in my opinion. That's going to be basically the Jaeger Amir of this year. Maybe not quite that good.
And then, of course, you've got people like, obviously, Jesse Hogan's going to be huge next year, and of course, Martin from the Gold Coast. So, a couple of players to look out for there.
And I've got a question from Paul Demick or Demich? Demek. Could be one of those pronunciations. He asks if available cash is low and trades are high. In this case, he's got 6. What is the best way on trading in a premium midfielder? Now, I think the only way to do it is by down trading a non-playing players or bench player down to a rookie. So maybe the likes of Clisby, now that he's out for 3 weeks, good time to get rid of him. Or even Tom Mitchell is starting to bottom out now. So maybe shift him out there and get some cash that way.
Yeah, definitely.
Trade the trades to you, maybe. Just...
Yeah, I'll give you money. I've got 60 grand waiting in my bank, so if you want to get that, there you go.
David Colwood asks what to do with Tom Mitchell. It's a funny one. Look, I would probably consider cutting him if you can afford to, but the flip side of that is that with a couple of games remaining, we may see teams start to rest some players, especially the top 4 likes of Hawthorn, Fremantle, Geelong, those guys. So I'd probably consider keeping him just in case there's an injury. He can still spit out those scores. He was pretty well held on the weekend, and the ultimate respect paid to him the week before when Billy Picken, he was a good player for Collingwood. Liam Picken went to him and shut him completely out of the game. So that just goes to show how good of a player he is.
And I've got another one here from Rich McLaughlin. He asks, I have the week off with 3 trades left. Do I still trade to bring in better players? Now it's
if you're going to the overall win, then sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean if you are, but if you've got the week off,
you can trade Clisby down to a rookie just so you don't if
just
you
to
need
make
to
cash.
use 2 trades next week, then you still could.
Or even trade if you're looking at a premium that's bottomed out, that's looking to rise in price this week, and you don't have enough cash if he rises in price, then maybe get him in a week early. Otherwise, I'll probably.
And also, like as you said, it depends what you're going for overall. Like if you're looking to break the top 1,000 or the top 5,000 or top 50 or something like that, then yes, trading this week's only going to amp up your scores.
Yeah. And one from Eddie Jeff Yarron.
How peculiar.
That's a funny name,
Maybe that combination next year. Sorry, continue.
He asks, who to upgrade, Tom Mitchell or Brent Staker? Now, I think it depends upon the other cover you've got in that particular area of your team. But I'd probably say, to pick or choose, I'd probably say Staker, just based purely on his run of form at the moment. His scoring's come to a halt. And you could maybe trade him out, upgrade him.
Well, I've got one from Bryce Gower. This is an interesting one, and one that I'm pretty interested in myself. I have a draft style league, and Dale Thomas is in my keeper league. How do you think he'll perform next year? I've got a keeper league myself, and this is one that I've been mulling over too. Look, to be quite honest, it's going to really depend where Dale Thomas is next year. There's a very good chance that he might be at Collingwood next year, and but speaking to other people at the club, they believe that he'll stay. So if he does stay at Collingwood, you can almost guarantee that he'll slot right back into that position that he was in. He's been really under par in the way of scoring because he's been injured for the better part of 2 years. So it's really sort of hard to say, but if he gets back to that 2010, 2011 form where he was pushing out big scores, constant 100+ scores, then you've got a gem on your hands. So I would keep him because the upside in him is massive, and there's really no point trading him in your keeper league because you're actually going to be selling him for unders rather than actually getting value for money. So I would keep him. Much more upside to be had.
I've got one from, excuse me if I get this wrong, Matt Vander Wegenator.
That was pretty good. That was pretty, I think you got
honestly.
Did you get that?
Yeah, I think so. He thinks, should Rockcliffe be captain this week? His average of the past month is great. Brisbane plays GWS, or should I stick with Gaz? Gaz's form hasn't been great. I'd go with Rockcliffe or Pendlebury if you're going to use this crappy little loophole.
Don't be jealous.
Keep off Gaz for now. As well, Hamish Mitchell's asking, he's got 425k in the bank, 1 trade left and he needs a forward. What's the best bet? That's a lot of money. I'd go with the most expensive one, Steve Johnson. He's had his rest or suspension, so he's not going to be rested in the lead up to the finals. Best option in my opinion.
And last one for me, Veronica Tanner. What should I do with my team choice this week out of Ablett, Pendlebury or Griffin? Now, to be quite honest, I think Pendlebury here out of the 3 is the best option available, especially given his scoring history. Not only at the G and against Hawthorn, but it's his scoring of late. He's in tremendous form. I'd stick with him. And
last but not least, Trent Miller. He's asking, what do you think you'll get more better from? Upgrading a good midfielder to a great midfielder, or a good forward to a great forward? So, for example, Pritis to Griffin or Selwood, or Kennedy to Boomer or something like that. I go with the mid since they've got the biggest ceiling.
Yeah.
I actually did that. I went Pritis to Griffin a few weeks ago, and it's been great for me.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's what you need in the finals. You need that one player that can really change the tide and change things for you. So.
Yep, that's it. And that's all for this week's episode. It's incredible to think that it's that's the semi-final edition done. 2 episodes left for the year.
AA team next week.
Yeah, we're going to be finishing off the All-Australian team next week. That's the rucks and the forwards. And we've got a pretty funky edition lined up for the grand final, the very last episode of the year. We're going to be going through some pretty funny awards that all you guys will be able to get involved with and vote for who should be the winner of each award. Or if anything, come up with your own award and tell us who should get it.
Yep.
So there's going to be lots of fun to be had, and well, we'll be back next week, and I hope your team wins. Good on you if you've got the week off, and good luck to you if you're playing for your life this week.
Yep.
I know I've got the week off,
Yeah,
so nice and easy for us. So all the best, good luck, and go Pies.
Go Tigers.
Go Blues.
That's what.